is run by amazing investment bankers and Morningstar tools can help make quick.
Beleggers die op zoek zijn naar dividend kunnen in Nederland onder andere terecht bij Spar-Invest Global Value, Kempen Global High Dividend en DWS Top Dividende. Alle drie dividendfondsen met een superior rating van Morningstar. Met de fondsmanager van DWS Top Dividende, Thomas Schüssler, praat ik over beleggen in dividend. En uiteraard ga ik ook in op de situatie op de beurzen naar aanleiding van de problemen in Japan. Mr. Schüssler, was it possible for you to leave your Frankfurt office with so much turmoil on the stock exchanges right now?
Well, that is possible because we have a long-term strategy and we're not making any swift changes usually towards for rapid events like the current one. So that's possible, yes.
DWS Top Dividende has positions in Japanese companies, for example telecom operator entity Docomo, and in utility companies as well. Have you already sold your positions?
I mean, I have one position in one Japanese company and that is a very defensive one. So that's small for me. I have more issues with utility companies falling because of nuclear power exposure. In that case, I will just actually let it fall because I feel that's going to go away. I mean, the current panic is going to subside.
And what characteristics does a top dividend stock has?
The characteristics, of course, should be an above average dividend, ideally, sustainable dividend, a stable dividend, and ideally a growing dividend along with earnings. So the ideal stock has a stable to growing dividend, which is very sustainable.
Your fund has removed from its positions in integrated oil and gas companies and has bought positions in telecom and utility companies. Why did you do that?
Yeah, because I felt, I mean, oil prices have run up a lot, so we've taken some profit there. I mean, it's still, after all, an equity fund, so you take profit when the stocks run up a lot. And the other reason is that the telecoms, for example, are better dividend payers at this point than a lot of oil companies, I would say. That the dividend yield is certainly higher.
Before the economic crisis, financials were steady dividend players, now no longer. What do you think? Will they come back as dividend stocks?
Yeah. I mean, part of the financials are still dividend-paying stocks, a lot of insurance companies, some stocks in foreign markets like Canada or Australia. But I doubt they will ever get to the same position in the dividend space than what they had in the past. Yeah. So they had a like 40% weighting in a lot of dividend indices. It's not going to happen again. Maybe they go back to 20, maybe 25, but not 40.
The top 10 weightings of your portfolio contains healthcare, energy and telecom stocks. And why are these sectors dividend sectors?
Well, they have a high dividend yield typically because they have fewer growth prospects, because they're very large, their end markets are not growing as rapidly, so they decide to return a lot of their cash flow, typically 40–50% to shareholders. So that's basically the reason why they have an above average dividend yield.
A high value can also mean that the stock price is slipping away. And how do you cope with such a value trap?
That is absolutely correct. So dividend yield can be a sign for rapidly falling stock price. So what we do is we do not consider stocks with a dividend yield above 10%. For example, if you sold all the financials in 2007 and 2008 when they reached 10% dividend yield, you cut your losses considerably. Yeah? So that's one line of defense. The second line of defense, of course, is that we make a projection for future earnings and cash flows, and that should help us to decide where the dividend is really sustainable and where it is not.
And can you also tell us when it is not the right time to invest in dividend stocks?
When it is absolutely not worth to do it. Well, longer term, I would say it's almost always worth to do it, but there's certainly a market environment when there are better opportunities. Let's phrase it that way. So when would there be better opportunities in the stock market? I think in an environment where you have a lot of inflation, very inflationary environment, it would be beneficial if you owned more materials, more energy stocks, more growth companies maybe. Our companies would be somehow hedged towards inflation, but not to the same extent. That's one example. Of course, a second example is when the market collapses 40%, well, you want to be in cash. There's a better alternative because even a dividend fund will in that case maybe drop 30 or 25.
And do you invest yourself in DWS Top Dividende?
Of course I do, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schüssler. Meer informatie over in Nederland verkrijgbare dividendfondsen En onder meer een link naar het fondsrapport van DWS Top Dividende vindt u op onze website.
Run by investment bankers, and Morningstar's tools can help make quick